The talk today is about the eternal givingness of the divine. And the eternal givingness of the divine never changes. It's always the same. However, our founder, Ernest Holm, talks about the fact that the Spirit can only give us as much as we can accept. And as we go through our lives, we go through an evolution. And we are involved in a very serious evolution at the current time. If you look at the technology of today, and you look at computers and all the other phenomenal scientific discoveries, and if you look back on however many years you may have, we went from, before there were anything but horses, to cars, and then just on to trains and planes and everything else. And so we've gone through quite an evolution. But this evolution is an infinite one, as Ernest Holm would say. And it's infinite because we are continuously growing, and that is the path of Spirit within us, that we will grow infinitely. Now, when you look at the third dimension, and you look at our lives, and you look at this world the way it is now, you might say to yourself, well, where is the evolution in that? We still have wars, we still have violence, we still have conflict, we still have all the other terrible things. Well, the good news is the world is changing. Let me ask you a question. How much have you changed in the last 20 or 30 years? How many here are aware of changing pretty dramatically in their life? Yes, okay. And how many are aware that they are currently changing? Okay. Now, any of you have a problem with time these days? It's worse than ever, isn't it? Yes. And does it seem like you can't keep track of today and yesterday, the day before? That's understandable, because as part of evolution, it means that you go from whatever level that you are at to a higher level. So at the current time, we are in the third dimension. And we're going through a lot of the behaviors of the third dimension. So I want to take a walk through the wisdom of two men. One is Abraham Maslow, and the other is Dr. Hawkins. So Jane, if you put the first slide up, this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You may not be able to read it, but if you go to the website and just click on Abraham Maslow or the hierarchy of needs, it will come up. But in the beginning, we're all involved with just what it takes to be alive and what it takes to survive. And then in the second level, we're involved with safety, because some people, in order to survive, they take from other people, because this is a basic dog-eat-dog survival first level. And at some point, we move beyond in the protection and so forth into the belongingness and love needs. And this is the family and the affection and the love. And we're becoming more evolved as individuals because we rise above these basic actions. And then at another point, we go into our self-esteem needs. And of course, in this part, we tend to get caught up in our ego, and we tend to get into our own personalities, and sometimes we lose the way in our egos. Then the next one is self-awareness, meaning, and knowledge. We begin to move into the intellectual part of ourselves, and we're looking around and we're asking questions about life. And then we move into the aesthetic needs, which is the beauty and the balance of the form. And some people don't take time to smell the roses, but when you move to this level, you smell the roses and you see the sunrises and sunsets, and you see the beautiful flowers, and you even see the beautiful weeds. And then at some point, we move into personal growth. This teaching is all about personal growth. We're all here because we're trying to see what we need to do to change ourselves, to advance ourselves both personally and spiritually in our divine relationship. And some people were blessed with coming into this life knowing that they were one with God, And then some of us have had no awareness of it for many years. It was my first 42 years, there was no connection, none at all, absolutely none. As a matter of fact, it went from adamant atheist to agnostic, and then the search. And out of the search and out of depression, I asked somebody, what do you do when you're depressed? And they pulled out a book. They said, I read this book called Creative Mind and Success by Ernest Holm. That was the start of the change in my life. I am deeply indebted to Dr. Ernest Holm because the man gave me the gifts that permitted me to change my life 100%, 100%. I can't believe the man who stands up here today, because in the first 40 years, that man would have never been crazy enough to stand up here. I remember the first time I did a talk in Toastmasters, I was behind the lectern, and as I'm doing a talk, I couldn't get them to stop. They just shook and shook and shook and shook. And I was so grateful that it was a solid lectern. Oh, that was an experience. But I joined Toastmasters because I wanted to conquer my fears, because I had just grown up with too many fears. So that's what we're doing as we're moving along here. We're learning to conquer our fears. We're learning to find out who we are. That was a soul-touching prelude before this. That was very beautiful. And that's the struggle that most of us go through in this life, trying to find ourselves and find out who we are. And eventually we'll come to the point where we do that thing that they call surrender. And surrender is such a phenomenally misunderstood thing. Surrender thing, people think that surrender is giving up. It is not giving up. It is giving away. You give your problems away to a power and a source that can handle it. And when you give your problems away to a power and source that can handle it, then you get confidence. And then you get something that exceeds confidence. And it exceeds believing. And you move into knowing. You know that you will be taken care of, and you know that your life is in perfect divine order. And you surrender yourself to be the clear vessel of the divine, so that the divine through you can maximize your life and make each one of us the most that we can be as divine beings in human bodies. Wow, that's quite a trip, isn't it? A divine being in a human body. So we start working on ourselves, and we start trying to change ourselves. And the problem there is that we don't know ourselves. We don't know ourselves. At 40, I had no idea who this man was. And then when I started looking at myself and I found out who the man was, I wasn't very thrilled, to say the least. It's like, but you know, it took 3 divorces and the realization that there was a common denominator. Oh, so that started the path. And after 2 years in the science of mind, I was driving across the bridge to Bellevue. And as I was driving across the bridge, this energy came into my being and filled my heart to overflowing. I'd never experienced anything like it in my life. I was just overwhelmed. I was so overwhelmed, I was driving and I was sobbing. And I didn't even know what I was crying and sobbing about. And then when I came to the toll gate, I wiped my eyes and paid the toll, and then continued driving again. And then I'm in Bellevue and I'm coming around a curve, and here's this berm. And then out of this group of trees and everything, here it comes again. And it just filled me to overflowing. I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And I didn't know till later what I was even sobbing about, because I had never felt the presence. Imagine that one. I never felt the presence. Today, I feel it every day, every day. And today I feel it more stronger. And this is part of the evolution too, is that as we go up this pyramid, transcendence as we are moving into transcendence, and as we change ourselves and we get rid of the fears and the angers and the negativities and the judgments and all the other things that don't serve us, we learn humbleness. But humbleness is an interesting paradox. In humbleness, you have nothing to protect, nothing to defend, and so you become bold and courageous. Interesting paradox, isn't it? And then you can get up in front of people and you don't have fear when you talk. There's a certain part, that of the human being that gets a little nervous, but it's totally different. It's not paralyzing like the first time when you get up to talk and the legs can't stop shaking. Yes. So this is the path we're going through. Now, the next slide is a study that Dr. David Hawkins did. We know that there are levels of consciousness, just as we know that there are dimensional levels. So we live in the third dimension, but we know there's a 2-dimension and a 1-dimension, and there is also a 4th and a 5th and a 7th and a 10th, and infinite dimensions. Jesus was talking about it when he said, "In my Father's house are many mansions." What did he mean? "In my Father's house are many mansions." Oh, lots of houses in heaven. Oh, great, we're going to live in mansions when we get to heaven. No. He was speaking a metaphor, which in Aramaic they do a lot. He used a lot of metaphors to get his point across. And how could he explain to those people that there are different levels of life? And each life is a vibration, a frequency, whatever you want to call it, a dimension. And as we go up to, people talk about going to heaven. Well, what is heaven? Heaven is just another dimension. And how many heavens are there? Well, how many dimensions are there? And what is the limit to heaven? Well, how many dimensions are there? What's the limit of the dimensions? Is there a limit in the divine? No. So as we move through this life and through other lives, wherever they may be, we are continually growing and moving up. So what was interesting on this one is, I'm just going to cover a few simple points about this to get the primary point across. When you start out on the map of consciousness, at the low levels, you have shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire. Desire is when you are, the reason that's put there as a negative is that when you have too much attachment to a desire, it becomes negative and it becomes overwhelming. The secret to desire is to have it with no attachment. Then you can really enjoy it. Then we go up to anger and pride. We've all been there, right? I mean, haven't we been in all these places? Every one of us? And then at 200, we move into courage. And 200 separates the negative emotions of the human from the positive. And from this point, we go up. We move up. 400 is reason. This country is somewhere in the 400s. We're an intellectual nation. I mean, our intelligence and our discoveries and so forth show that. And then about 400, you move up to 500, which is love. Then above 500 is unconditional love. Then above that is peace, and then above that is the sense of the oneness, or what he calls enlightenment, in the 700 to 100 range. So what's the purpose of the scale? The scale makes us aware that we are at different levels, but it needs to be used without judgment. It needs to be used to realize that we are growing beings, and this is sort of like a map of where we're going to move and where we're going to grow. So when we started out, we were one with God because we were created as a thought in the mind of God. Well, what happened? Well, we read in the Bible a story of the fall. Well, many things in the Bible are metaphors, and I would suspect or have to say that that's a metaphor too. What was the fall? What was really the fall? The fall was when you go from one dimension to a lower dimension and you get caught up in the lower dimension. And so, or when you say, hey, I want to see what that's like down there, and you go to experience it and get caught up in it. Whatever it may be, the trick is to get back out of the lower dimensions, back into the upper dimensions. And this is what spirituality is all about. As spiritual beings, we are on a path to remember our oneness with God. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. How many here are totally free of all self-criticism? That's heartbreaking. That's absolutely heartbreaking. It makes me cry. Really makes me cry. How many here believe God is omnipresent? All present. God is all present. Okay. Now, if God is all present, that means God is in everything and everyone, right? So where is God? In you. In you, right? So if you can't accept and love, thanks, Marie. If you can't accept and love yourself, or if you're criticizing yourself, whom are you criticizing? Whom are you criticizing? Whom are you criticizing? Do you want to do that? That's right. But we've had that drilled into us. We were criticized as children. Most of us got physical and mental, emotional, psychological mistreatment by our parents. And we learned it. So we taught what we learned. I remember when my son was a year old and he was, you know how kids are, he's got that little hand out there after something, right? And he went grabbing for something and I said, no, Tommy. And I heard my voice. And I said, I will not talk to my son that way. And I never did again. I went over and I picked him up and I just hugged him and I said, I'm sorry, son. I'll never talk to you like that again. I didn't want to talk to him and I didn't want to treat him the way I'd been treated. And I didn't. At the age of 28, I had never loved anyone. And then I had this boy that I had to take care of, change his diapers and feed him and everything. And any father who doesn't get to do that gets grossly deprived, believe me, because you bond with a child. And it's the most beautiful thing. There is that masculine and feminine in both of us that must be kept in balance. And whether you're a man or a woman, there is that sweetness and that lovingness and that tenderness and that caring and that gentleness and that serving that is there. That is a natural part of all of us. And of course, this planet has gotten out of balance, too much to the masculine and the domineering and the macho and so forth. And we're in the process of bringing that back into balance again so that the human becomes more balanced with the divine. When I think of the journey, I look at it, sometimes you think like you're not moving on your journey, on your spiritual path. And at the current time, what's going on is that a lot of people are experiencing physical illness, emotional illnesses, anger's coming up and so forth. Because whether you're aware of it or not, we are going through a transitional time on this planet. We are actually in the process of moving from the third to the fifth dimension. What's the fifth dimension? You know what the third dimension is like, right? This is it, right? Okay. Imagine a fifth dimension. Peace, love, joy, happiness, harmony, all the beautiful things of life. No war, no strife. Everyone is taken care of. Everyone cooperates. They talk about the galactic wars. You've heard of those, right? Well, they had the galactic wars. And then they realized that war is never the answer. And so they formed the Galactic Federation. And it's at a higher level, so we're not aware of it. But that Galactic Federation lives at the 5th dimension or higher. And some of the different planets and so forth, we think they're not occupied. That's because on other planets, the people live inside the Earth. Isn't that amazing? Now, most people probably don't have any idea about this information or about other worlds or other times or other levels. But in the time ahead that each one of us is going to see, we will see this world change. And we will see the governments change, and the businesses change, and the banking change, and all the things that the controlling powers, negative powers, have done to keep us sublimated are going out the window. So you say, well, how do you explain about ISIS? Well, ISIS is one of their last-ditch stands. Because if you want to control people, what do? You keep them in fear. I mean, Hitler knew it. He said, if you can create enough fear, you can control the people. Well, where are we and where are we going? We have been through the dregs. We've been through the 3rd dimension. We've been through the growth. And at the current time, we actually, whether you know it or not, fluctuate between the 3rd and the 5th dimension. The way you can tell if you're in the 5th dimension is you can be involved in an incident. You could be there for 2 hours and it seems like 1 minute because you're not caught up in the time. So the thing that we're involved in now, and the thing that's so important, and the reason I wanted to do this talk, is because of where we need to go. We are being assisted by higher levels, and the earth is being bombarded with divine light and love. And the problem is, it is raising the consciousness. But in raising the consciousness, it also brings up the shadow side in us. And so the unresolved angers and fears and negativities and judgment and so forth come up physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, or in whatever way. So we are in a strong transitional time. But in the time that lies ahead, there is something so great and so wonderful. And I'll tell you why I'm doing this talk. I'm doing this talk because I can feel what lies ahead. And in the last several years, what has been happening to me personally is that my experience of the oneness has become more frequent and more intense. And this is what's going to happen to all of us. We are going to feel the presence of God more intensely. And we will get to the point, too, where we can stand in front of a person and feel God in them, like I feel her God being. And it's totally overwhelming. It's totally overwhelming. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Yeah. We are all God beings. We're part of God. There is no separation between ourselves and God. But what is coming is so beautiful because when we experience in this life that we are unconditionally loved by God, that is the most amazing thing. And I don't mean where we just hear about it or think about it or read about it, but when we experience it. And I remember the first time I had that experience, it was totally overwhelming. Totally overwhelming. I couldn't believe that at 42, and the guy that I was, angry and judgmental and fearful and negative and self-loathing, I couldn't believe that that essence loved me unconditionally, just the way I was. Just the way I was. God, why do you love that guy? How can it love me just the way I am? Our human love does not begin to compare with the divine love. And the divine love is so complete and so beautiful and so encompassing that the divine doesn't judge its own creations. And as we move up through the dimensions, we experience this greater and greater love. But something's going to happen on the earth that has never happened before. There have been people who have ascended. Not only Jesus, but Buddha and Krishna and many others. But this planet is moving through a phase where we're going to go through, believe it or not, a planetary ascension. It doesn't mean we're going any place, but the ascension is we're going to move through the third, fourth, and fifth dimensions. When you're in those higher dimensions, you don't put other people down. You don't judge them. You don't mistreat them. You share. See, the other thing that has become quite apparent to me in the last several years at a heart level is that we are all here to serve each other. We're all here to serve each other. My daily prayer is that I am the clear vessel of the loving source expressing itself through me as itself. That is the fulfillment of the soul. When we are that clear expression of the divine expressing itself through us. And when we are in the anger and the fear and the negativity and the judgment, we have slipped out of it. I told the story once about hiking with one of the practitioners, and I had mentioned to them that you could walk up to an individual, a tree, a bush, or whatever, and you could feel the God presence. And we're doing it for about 10 minutes, and then she says to me, "Oh, Jack, let's do that." And here's this twisted, amorphic, ugly, indescribable root structure of some kind. So I says, "Okay." So I focus my hand on it, and I feel the God presence in it. And I realized what I just said before. And I said, in my mind I thought, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know who you were." Well, did I get blown away when it answered? Yes, I did. And it said, "Nor I you." I would have never phrased it that way. I would have never phrased it that way. And I realized that I had just communicated with a root. I had just communicated with a root, and it had just communicated with me. Well, there's a time when our lessons go from here in the head to here in the heart. That one went right through my heart. I realized, I had a question for myself. Right after it said, "Nor I you," I thought, how could it not know my God being? And then I realized, when we judge, we step out of our God being. When we judge, we step out of our God being. So that means that every time we judge ourselves, we judge another person, we judge a thing, we are stepping out of that holy presence. So the big lesson to me was that omnipresence is a reality. It's an absolute truth. God is really present in everything. And God is present in every person. And we need to awaken to the realization that there is only one life, and that life is God. And that life is not only my life, but it's your life. And each person here is a part of God. Each person here is a sacred, beautiful, holy expression of God. You may not see yourself that way, but the loving source, Father, Mother, God, sees you like you're the most beautiful thing there is, no matter what you've done. No matter what you've done. Try and figure that one out. That much love. Loves each one of us just the way we are. So it's okay to be who we are. And we need to be who we are because that was the original intention of our creation, was to be who we are. Each one of us was meant to express God in a different, unique way. Divinity is about difference. Divinity and difference is divine, not damned. Difference is divine. And we need to accept other people's differences. And when I saw that up there today, of those 5 boys sharing, that was heart-touching. And that's what we have to get to. We have to get to being ourselves, and we need to start accepting everyone else the way they are. Jane, if you would move the next slide. Ernest Holm says, I can believe in planes beyond this one without number. In eternal progress, the basis from which we are all evolving is infinite. This isn't the last stop on a train. There are a lot more. I covered the statement by Jesus, and I want to, on the next slide, show something Ernest Holm said too. Holm says the Spirit is ever giving, but we must take it. What life does for us must be done through us. So when we have trouble in receiving, we are denying the divine giving to us. It is the joy of the divine to give to us. Holmes says we need spiritual experience. We shall never know truth until we become truth, and we cannot know God unless we sense God within our own being. And our job on this path is to become godlike, to be unconditionally loving, to see the beauty that is, no matter whom it is in or what it is in. And our job is to let go of the fears and the negativities and the angers and the judgments and the fears, and to move into the boldness and the strength and the courage and the wisdom and the love and the understanding that are our natural attributes. So I have a challenge for you for today. This week, and the week after, and every week after that, I want you to look at yourself in the mirror and see if you love you like God loves you. That's it, folks. Just take a deep breath, relax, and set everything else aside so that we can be totally in this moment. This is the God moment, to be consciously aware of that loving source. Beautiful loving source. Wondrous God of my being. I feel your holy presence in me. I feel your holy presence in each person here. And I know that we are your beloved because there is only one, and that one is beautiful and magnificent and infinite and unconditionally loving and everywhere present and all-powerful and all-knowing. And yet I and we are one with this one. The Master Jesus said, what I've done you can do an even greater. He was trying to tell us that we are spiritual beings, that we all have the capability of great things when we realize our spiritual selves. And so in this oneness with the power of Spirit, the love of Spirit, and the wisdom of Spirit, and all the attributes of Spirit, I now speak the word for myself and for each person here. I declare, decree, accept, and know that the power and the love of Spirit moving in and through each one of us is helping us to erase the past grievances, judgments, angers, fears, negativities, sense of separation, unworthiness, shame, guilt, whatever it may be. And for each one of us in its place, for each one of us in its place is that divine love, that sense of the oneness, of knowing that we are inseparable from that which loves us beyond our wildest dreams, that we are already the beloved, that it sees us, no matter what or how we are, as perfect. And I speak the word that today and in the days and weeks that follow, that something wonderful and miraculous happens to each one of us, so that we awaken to our true divinity, to our power and our light and our love and our wisdom and our knowledge and our understanding and our empathy and our understanding And we awaken to the realization that we are all here to love and serve each other. We are all here to love and serve everything. Mother Nature, the animal kingdom, everything. Everything. And I speak the word that what has been a block in the past is obliterated for each of us. So we are able to move forward. We move forward with a calmness, the power, and the sureness of spirit. For we understand that though of myself I can do nothing, the God within me can do anything and everything. And it can also help change me when I call upon it for its help. And so as I speak that word for myself and each person here, I know there is only one answer the divine has, and that is, yes, my beloved, I heard you, and it is done. So it's with a great sense of humbleness and gratitude and overwhelming, overpowering love that I release the word, knowing before I could speak the words, the intimacy of the one mind knew my heart and each heart here, and it has been set into motion and done in the mind of God. And we all give thanks, knowing that it is done in good, and we conclude it by saying, and so it is. Let's just go into the silence. Just integrate that love into your being. Just let it soak in.